Maribel, amiga, welcome to Cafecito con Jefas, Poder Latina SEO podcast. It is such an honor to have you, amiga.
Gracias for having me, Elisa.
Yes. People, I need people to know that the way you came into my life was through Threads, okay? Hay que darle a Threads un aplauso because as we were getting closer to the beginning of Hispanic and Latin Heritage Month, I don't know, like I think in the air, I had this feeling that like people were not really, and I understand, right? Because of everything that's happening out there in the world, I really feel that people are not really up to celebrating, right?
Mm-hmm.
Celebrating us right now. So I was like, let me just see how people feel, right? And I just put the question out there in Threads and I got some really good answers, but my favorite was yours. Do you remember what it was?
I do. And it's because I woke up that morning feeling away and I was like, I have something to say here.
Yes,
And
tell us, what did you have to say?
essentially, I said, our very existence is an act of protest.
It sure, that's why I love this so much. Oh my God, tell us more.
It it just is, right? Like we who are being bilingual, looking the way that we look is under attack right now. Right? Like we are being outcast, like pulled out of a crowd for just waking up and being who we are. A thing that you have no control of. That being said, if I had control of it, I would still wake up and be this tomorrow morning. So our existence is a protest. And I believe that in times like this, it's even more important that we celebrate who we are and that we wake up every morning and that we take up space. And I also said that those of us who have citizenship have a greater responsibility to do that because there are folks who cannot, because what they risk is greater than those of us who are citizens.
Dios mío. And that's the reason I asked that question, because I totally feel the same way you do. I definitely think we need to be proud. We need to be loud of our heritage. We need to really just show up for our people.
Yeah.
With that being said, Manita, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and how you feel about it, because I totally agree with you. With that being said, who is Maribel? Tell us who you are. I know this is going to be a book, but we don't have time for a book right now.
I
So
know.
tell us just a little bit about who you are and maybe what shaped you, right?
Yes.
Into the Latina and the Jefa that you are today.
But both came here young and in very different ways. Born and raised in New York City, in the projects of New York City, which I think is an important detail. Like undergraduate, went to a pretty well-established university, and it was the first time feeling out of place, right? Like it wasn't like I didn't know white people growing up in New York City, but going to college in New England was the first time I met white people who didn't identify as a culture or an ethnicity. And I was really different. And so I clung to my Latinidad, right? So rather than like shedding it because it was the thing that made me stand out, like I gravitated towards it and I was like, this is my center and this is my truth. So I think that's important to call out. You know, you had asked me at one point, like, where did Latina Sweetie come from, which is what I go by on most social media platforms. And it's because my Latina identity is core to my existence. It's core to where I come from and how I navigate the world. I started my career in higher education. So I did almost a decade working in student services at different universities. And then I was like, it's time to do something different, because moving up the ladder in this was actually moving away from the thing that I loved most, which was one-to-one work with students. Somehow in my being, I've always known that it was important to love what I do. And so as I was like moving away from the thing I loved about that, I was like, so what's next? What's the next thing that I'm going to love? And I took the time at 30 to realize like maybe there's some stuff I didn't consider that I might be really good at. I thought that marketing was that. I was like, I'm really strong at communications. I'm a really great writer. I have a creative like lens to what I do. And so maybe marketing is something. But it was also the early days of social media. And I was like, if I'm going to move into marketing, usually people go straight from college into marketing. That is not what I'm doing. I'm 30 something, right? Like they're kind of not going to want me. But this social media thing, for me, it was the next evolution of the internet and its impact on marketing, right? First was Google and AdWords, and I was like, I think social media is next. And I was right. So I ended up going to business school to get my MBA, and I focused in marketing and management wherever I could infuse social and digital. I did projects, internships, etc. And then I had the great fortune of graduating into the recession in 2009. Really bad time to be a career shifter and try to find a new job. So my first attempt at entrepreneurship was actually then. I had to become an
Wow.
entrepreneur.
What year was that? Say that again.
2009.
And I
Yeah,
love that.
so
Okay,
I
we're gonna
had to
we're
be
gonna come back to that in just a
yes,
moment.
I had to become an entrepreneur because nobody wanted to hire me. So that's how I earned my stripes in marketing with small businesses in New York City and building a portfolio. Eventually that got my foot in the door in the agency world. Fast forward 15 years in the agency world, 10 of which were working with and for entrepreneur Gary Vaynerchuk in the ecosystem that he built. And then earlier this year, so February 14th of 2025, I launched my own company, Beget Love Consulting.
Talk about taking a leap. Talk about mandando todo el carajo. And starting your own thing. Giving it a try. And you know what's the best part about it? That you gave yourself a chance to give it a try. And even if it didn't work, you're like, lo hice, lo traté. I put my passion to it. I committed to it. And but look, it worked, which is really, really exciting. So based on everything you've shared,
Yeah.
what inspired your journey to become a jefa? So I know you mentioned you were in higher education, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you had that career for a really long time. And you mentioned that probably what inspired you to think about entrepreneurship as the next thing was the fact that as you moved up the ladder, right, and you were building a table for yourself and creating space for Latina leaders in the organizations that you were working for. And it makes sense because I even see my own leaders. I do have a day job, and I see how the folks that become VPs or higher, they start moving away from us, right? Though, and those that are the closest to boots on the ground, and they become detached, right, from that reality. And I love that it got to the point where maybe and or title
Mm-hmm.
was not as important as the love you were having for what you were doing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Dios mío, nosotros estamos haciendo como some discoveries in here. Yo me siento que estamos como en una
We're in
terapia.
therapy, right?
This is amazing. Manita, for the women that are in the same shoes that you were before you launched your business, what helped you take the leap and make that decision? Did you have a mentor? Did you take time away from work to think about what you wanted to do? Or was it more of an immediate, this is how I feel, even though
Mm-hmm.
I have an opportunity to continue to grow, make more money, have a better title, move up the ladder? What what tools or resources or people do you have access to really make that decision and take the leap?
Yeah, I think the first thing, and this goes for the first time I was an entrepreneur in 2009, right, which was out of necessity, and then now being an entrepreneur and starting a company in 2025. What both have in common is that I wasn't getting what I needed from the job landscape, right? So in 2009, I physically was not getting a job offer, right? And not getting a job offer in my mind is not an excuse to not work, right? It was just like, well, if I'm not getting an offer from somebody else, then I need to carve my own path and continue to get the experience that is going to eventually put me in a better spot to get that job. And mind you, I also had jobs that paid the bills, right? I worked for the census. So 2009, 2010 was a census year. So 2009, the Census Bureau was hiring, and I worked a bunch of different jobs over the course of about a year for the US Census Bureau to pay my bills. And then on the side, I was building a portfolio of marketing clients, right, for the experience. And so I did what I needed to do because I wasn't getting what I needed. And then fast forward 2025, I actually started thinking about what would come next after all those years at Vayner. there were a few things that were really clear to me. One is that Vayner had ruined me for working for another company. I loved the culture so much. It was so different than any place else I had worked. And I was just like, I'm not going to find that anywhere else. Like I'll be looking for something that doesn't exist. And the other piece was, if you have a vision for how things should work, I had a vision for how I wanted to work with small businesses and entrepreneurs that I knew was not feasible within a larger company. When you are somebody as experienced as I am within a larger company, you're supposed to work with the big clients that justify your existence within that organization, that justify what you get paid, right? Whereas I work for myself, I don't have any overhead. I work for my house, right? Like I have to make sure
Right.
my bills are
It's a
paid.
different perspective.
It's a very different perspective, and I can scale, I can give discounts, I can develop services that both make sense for what I need to make for my livelihood, but also what makes sense for the realistic like situation that is the budgets, right? The modest budgets of founders and small
I
businesses.
love it.
So I had a vision that was not feasible within an organization. What I wasn't ready for was the when. And I realize now with hindsight that I was still scared, that I was still scared of the uncertainty of it. So, do I have mentors? Yes. Gary is a massive mentor. And so, just the constant hearing of like, it's bravery is the act of is acting in the face of fear, not the absence of fear. And so it's that reality of like acknowledging it, embracing it, and moving with it, as opposed to having it be a hurdle in your road. The other piece I would say is like a supportive friend network, right? Like most of my friends don't actually work in my industry, but they are supportive, right? They are a listening ear when I need it. So just knowing that I was like covered and that I had that community in place. And then the third I would say is the willingness to ask for help, because it's one thing to have those folks in place, but you have to be humilde enough, right? And you also have to be super self-aware to like be clear on what you know and be clear on what your weaknesses. Because the thing that you do not have time for in entrepreneurship is delaying getting the information.
And making the decision too,
You
right?
have to make
Delaying
decisions.
getting the information and making the decision. That's going to cost you money.
Yes. And so I think like knowing what you know, knowing what you don't know, knowing who's there to help you, and moving fast.
I love it. Dios mío. We can write a book. Escribir un libro, hacer revistas. I love it. Manita, this is such great advice. And I really hope your story, someone out there identifies with it and says like, you know what? Si Maribel lo hizo, yo puedo también. I can give myself a chance to try something new, take the leap, try something different. If I'm not happy at my current job, right? Or if I'm not happy, maybe
Yeah.
with my, even with my current business, maybe I can think about how to completely re-strategize, offer something new, new services, new products. And that's actually one of the things that Covedos had to do. I completely had to revamp my business strategy for 2025 because things were not working out.
Yeah.
My audience was changing, the priorities of our consumers were changing, but the business was not. So I had to be like, espérate, vamos a una pausa, dame un momento. El dinero no está entrando. What is going on? People are now no longer, interested in what I'm offering. So what are the things that I need to do? Giving up wasn't an option for me, right? So what are other things that I can maybe incorporate into my business strategy? And one of those things was services, right? And also, doing a soft launch of a podcast so I can get my jefas in here so other people can be inspired by your stories. So as we close this cafecito conversation, is there any advice that you would like to give our jefas out there that maybe, to your point, are maybe in the same path, right? And they're really reconsidering what they want to do from a career standpoint, or they're thinking about monetizing their skills, their knowledge, because they're just so good at what they do naturally. They really want to, take that entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So what I will say is this is there are people like this is for everyone. There are people out there who don't know what you know. As an individual, you're never going to work with everybody. You don't have to think about working with everybody. Our tendency is to think about like the most experienced person in whatever field we're in. And it's just like you don't need to be the most experienced person. You just need to be really clear on what it is you know and acknowledge that there are people who would benefit from that. And so it's really all about just finding your community, the people that you're able to impact, and you start there and then you scale. And every year you're going to be more experienced and be moving closer to that North Star, right? But don't try to compare yourself to the greatest of the greatest in your field. Like, it's not necessary.
Me encanta. Yes, comparison is definitely an enemy. What people have to understand is that, yes, you may be in the same industry, maybe you may even have the same type of business, but everyone is in a different journey within their own journey. So maybe point A for you is already point B or point C for someone else. So it's just so important to keep that in mind, stay grounded,
Yes.
and understand that whatever it is that you're doing, you have to be passionate about it. Be committed, porque va a venir la vida y tititúa, te va a dar trompa, okay? And it's gonna be like, knock knock. Are you sure you want to do this? And you're gonna be like, what you have for me, Anita? This was so amazing.
Thank you for having
We
me.
are only gonna do like this very short conversation for now, but you are coming back
All
for
right.
a longer cafecito chat because tenemos mucho que unpack.
Estoy esperando la invitación ya.
Oh my God, me encanta. It was such a pleasure. I know for sure that your story is going to impact so many amazing jefas. Really, really appreciate you. But Manita, before you leave, tell us about your business, what is the name of your business, and what we can do to support you.
Okay. My company is called Beget Love Consulting, and it's because in order for marketing to work in this day and age, you have to make it emotional. I work with small businesses to mid-market businesses. I do strategy development. I do advisory services for my smaller clients. The best way to support me is follow me on social, amplify what I do, be part of the conversation, be part of the community, which is how you can support all small business owners in our community.
On social media channels, she's also part of Luminary. Ella es parte de todo. You are going to find her in every single corner because that is what we do as Latinas. We are out there y estamos en toda, en la leche, en el café, en el chai. You're going to find us everywhere. Guys, make sure you are supporting this incredible jefa, Maribel. Gracias, mi amor.
Thank
I know
you.
you're so busy, and the fact that you take away time from your schedule to join us as we celebrate Latin and Hispanic. I'm so inspired. Te quiero mucho, amiga.
All right, que viva la comunidad.
¡Que viva! Un abrazo, mi amor. Nos vemos pronto.
Bye.
Chao, amiga. Chao.